Ethan Parker had always dreamed of becoming a professional pianist. As a child, he would sit by the old upright piano in his grandmother's living room, mesmerized by the sound of her fingers dancing across the keys. But his family could never afford lessons, and his only exposure to music came from listening to records and mimicking the sounds by ear. Determined to teach himself, Ethan borrowed piano books from the library and watched free tutorials online. His fingers fumbled over the keys, missing notes and struggling with rhythm, but he refused to give up. Every morning before school and every night before bed, he practiced tirelessly. He wrote down every mistake, analyzed where he went wrong, and tried again. By the time he reached high school, Ethan's passion for the piano had only grown stronger, but he faced constant ridicule. His classmates laughed at his calloused fingers and the way he carried sheet music in his backpack. "You'll never be as good as the kids with real teachers," they sneered. The doubt gnawed at him, but deep inside, he knew that talent alone wasn't what made a great musician, it was persistence. One day, Ethan saw a flyer for the state's annual youth music competition. The grand prize was a scholarship to one of the top music academies in the country. His heart pounded at the thought of competing against trained musicians, but he saw an opportunity, not an obstacle. He signed up. With only 6 months to prepare, Ethan pushed himself harder than ever. He worked part-time at a cafe to save up for a used keyboard so he could practice after school. He studied classical pieces, dissecting each note and phrasing with obsessive precision. His hands ached, his grades slipped, and exhaustion weighed him down, but he kept going. 3 weeks before the competition, disaster struck. While helping move furniture at the cafe, Ethan injured his right wrist. The doctor's words hit him like a sledgehammer: "You need rest. No strenuous movement for at least a month." Ethan felt crushed. He had come so far, yet now he couldn't even use his dominant hand. But rather than accept defeat, he found another way. He spent hours training his left hand to play both melodies and harmonies, reworking his entire piece to be played with a single hand. It was unconventional, difficult, and seemed nearly impossible, but he refused to give up. The day of the competition arrived. Ethan walked onto the grand stage, his nerves a storm inside him. The other contestants had the poise and confidence of years of professional training, while he stood there with nothing but sheer determination. He sat at the grand piano, took a deep breath, and began to play. The audience hushed as his left hand carried the melody, the sound swelling with emotion. The judges exchanged glances, surprised at his adaptation. Each note resonated with the struggle, the late nights, and the unwavering belief that had carried him to this moment. As the last chord faded, there was a brief silence, then thunderous applause. Ethan didn't win first place, but he did win something even more valuable. One of the judges, a renowned pianist, approached him afterward. "That was the most inspiring performance I've ever seen," she said. "You don't just play music, you tell a story. I want to mentor you." Under her guidance, Ethan trained harder than ever, refining his technique and expanding his knowledge. Years later, he became a professional pianist, performing in concert halls around the world. His journey was never easy, but he learned that success wasn't about where you started, it was about how hard you were willing to fight for your dream. His advice to others: talent can open doors, but perseverance is what takes you through them. Never let obstacles define your limits, find a way forward, no matter how impossible it seems.